We're underway in Big 12 conference play, and next up for the Cowboys, a road game at Iowa State. And Coach, two conference games so far against Baylor and against Texas Tech on the road, and there were some real positives in both of those games. Had a 9-point lead early at Texas Tech, for example. As we focus on that game first, the first part of that game, what can you take away from that early surge that can apply for the rest of the year?
That we have the ability to put a game plan together that can be successful. That our defense can show up in times to help us get off to a good start. And now the next step, really, and it's been this group's biggest challenge, is sustainability. It's consistency. It's understanding how to punch back when the other team responds. And on Tuesday night, we just never responded to their run. I think they took the lead around just under the 8-minute mark or so, and it happened to be on an offensive rebound on a free throw, which is one of the more controllable things that we have within the game, that led to Pop Isaac's first basket, his first three-point shot of the game, and then the snowball just rolled downhill on us in a way that we never got a chance to recover from.
Well, you mentioned snow, and snow was a factor as far as the travel was concerned. It was a quirky trip. You didn't go until game day to go out to Lubbock, but yet you started fast. So does that tell you anything about this team, despite some of its youth, ability to adapt and just go ahead and go with the flow and play? Because the first thought you'd have is, oh my gosh, we're going to start poorly, the routine's out of whack. Did you gain anything from that in terms of what this team can do handling challenges and so forth?
Well, I think this group's shown the ability to overcome small adversities, and that was just a kind of a small adversity moment for us. Obviously, wasn't the way we normally travel. We very rarely go anywhere on the day of the game. It's certainly not a place where you got to fly to. But the kids adjusted. We talked to them about controlling the controllables, being able to master the things that are within our ability to focus on, and getting off to a good start, trying to get back into that routine as quickly as possible with shoot around and pregame meal, something that we did. But again, the start of the game was good, but it's a 40-minute game, and particularly on the road, you got to be able to sustain runs from the other team because they'll always make them.
Bryce Thompson is getting close to 1,000 points. He's at 979, as a matter of fact. He came here as a transfer. If you would talk about sort of how he's progressed throughout his career here, and what's been most pleasing to you about his presence?
Well, Bryce, I'm really pleased with who Bryce is becoming as a person and how he's adapted his game during his time here. There's a lot of challenging and somewhat unrealistic expectations when you're the best player in the state and you're McDonald's All-American. You go to a traditional blue blood program and you don't necessarily have the immediate impact that you thought you would. Then turn around and come back to your home state, and people still think that you should be this NBA, lottery pick type player. And really, what he's shown is there's a process to this all. It really hasn't changed as much as people think it has. And so he's going through the normal progress that a good player does. Is he tries to figure out himself and how his game can translate to helping his team have success. And then he became a guy who we can count on, a full-time starter, a leader, a guy who brings great positive energy to our program every day, who is helping the young guys learn those same steps, how to prepare, how to take care of your business off the court. He's always done well in the classroom, and really, really proud that he's from Oklahoma, that he's playing here at our school, and that he's representing all of us in the most positive light possible.
Yeah, you see his parents and his grandmother here all the time. There's always a presence with him in terms of friends and family. On the court, though, how do you feel like, what's the biggest leap he's made since he arrived compared to now in terms of what he does on the floor?
I think his understanding of the game, particularly on the defensive end of the court, because I'll be honest, I never really viewed him as a defensive stopper during our time recruiting him from high school. And he certainly doesn't have that reputation even now, but he's one of our more reliable guys in terms of being in the right spots. And that takes quite a commitment to studying the game, to understanding concepts, to realizing that, that's an important part of winning. And he's embraced that. He's become a really, really good two-way player for us. And I'm thankful of his leadership and the accountability that he takes on every day, which again helps guys like Jamiron Keller and Connor Dow understand how this can work over the course of their careers.
So next up, a road trip to Iowa State. It's interesting, over the last 25 years, there's only 3 teams in the Big 12 that have beaten NCAA tournament Iowa State teams in Ames in consecutive years. Baylor, Kansas, and your team the last 2 years. Does any of that carry over? You have 3 guys that were a part, obviously, of some of that success, but can that carry over? That's a rare group that has pulled that off. It's a tough place to win.
Yeah, there's been a lot of small moments like that in our time here the last 6 years. Another example of our staff's ability to game plan and get our guys ready to go play in what normally is one of the more hostile environments in all college basketball. Certainly one of the top 3 most difficult places to win that I've ever been to. But the fact that our teams have found a way to be a little bit tougher, because you got to play with a sense of toughness. You got to play with great discipline to win there, and you got to believe, because I think it's going to be about 25 below and some snow on the ground. But what I also know is there's still going to be about 15,000 people show up to the game, and so we've got to have a great sense of resiliency and competitiveness in order to come out there and play well, because they're a really, really good team, as evidenced by the way they've started the season.
Yeah, you mentioned toughness. In fact, the other night, earlier this week, they handed Houston their first loss of the season in Ames, which tells you a lot right there. But 3rd in the nation in defensive efficiency, one of the best teams in the nation in forcing turnovers. That toughness element going into their building, how significant is it, especially on the offensive end, the way they want to get after people?
Yeah, I mean, they really do a great job of forcing turnovers and then in turn getting easy baskets themselves. It's a big part of the reason why their offensive numbers are so much improved over the last few years, is they're really getting easy baskets by forcing a lot of turnovers. And then they really, overhelp. So they force teams to beat them from the 3-point line, which many teams haven't been able to do so far. And so we've got to do a really good job of taking care of basketball, playing with a sense of physicality, and then being confident when we do have those open shots to knock them down.
Yeah, you gave us a peek into a matchup thing, and that is the 3-point shooting. 40% of Iowa State's opponents' points, I believe, have come from 3. It's one of the highest ratios in the country. That's what you do well. Could that be a matchup advantage for you? Because, as you said, it looks like they're daring people to beat them from 3, and you can be happy to oblige.
Yeah, one of the keys with that is obviously passing the ball well, because they do overhelp in many instances, bringing a second defender and sometimes a third defender into the area where the ball is. And so being able to make skip passes and having the right combinations of guys on the floor who can take advantage of that aggressive defensive approach. But yeah, shot making is always key on the road, and it certainly won't be any different in Ames on Saturday.
And a good pair of gloves.
And a good pair of gloves, and maybe a scarf, and maybe some earmuffs.
Whatever it takes, because it'll be cold in Ames. We hope the Cowboys are hot from the field as the Cowboys take on the Cyclones. We'll see you next week.